Happy Sunday. I hope everybody's doing well. Welcome. I am Gina with Advantage College Planning, and I am really excited to talk tonight about college essays. Very popular topic that is happening in our offices. And so I figured probably a good time to share some information with you because I'm sure this is coming up a lot in your households as well. So welcome this evening. I'm excited to jump into all of this. Before we do that, I would love if you could put some of your information in the chat. Also, let me know give me a thumbs up if the sound is working. Let me know if the video is coming through. I never know how things are coming through on your end. So if you could just let me know where you're tuning in from, what year your students are, that's always really helpful. This information tonight will be focused mainly on rising seniors because we'll be talking about writing the personal essay. But if you have younger students, this will be helpful information for you to have as well, just to be thinking about as your students get to that point soon enough. Oh, good. I'm seeing some thumbs up. So that's good. That means you can hear me. Video is good. Awesome. That's always nice to hear. Great. So tonight we'll be focusing on 3 college essay cringes to avoid and try to help you, avoid those pitfalls that I do see a lot of students fall into when they're working on essays on their own. So we are going to go ahead and get started. If you are new here, my name is Gina. I am a college consultant with Advantage College Planning here in the Raleigh area. And we also work with students all over the US. So we meet in person or in Zoom. And I like to jump on here and just share some information every few weeks to really help demystify and de-stress the application process. Our topic tonight is 3 essay cringes to avoid, but I've got content on all different types of topics, which you can find on our Facebook page and on our YouTube channel as well. Awesome. All right, so let's jump in. And first, let's start talking about the common application essay in general. So to orient you to the topic. So the common application essay is known by many names. Some people refer to it as the personal essay, the college essay, the Common App essay. It all means the same thing. So what we're talking about is this main essay that is sent to all of the colleges that a student would apply to using the Common Application platform. The vast majority of colleges that your students are going to be applying to will be on the Common Application with a few exceptions. One big exception would be if you are tuning in to us from California and your student is applying to California. Let's say they're applying to the University of California system schools. They have their own platform. But for the majority of the colleges in the US, you're going to find them on the Common Application. As a part of that application, students have to write a maximum of 650-word essay. Okay. And so this essay is their opportunity to, and I highlighted it here, this is a screenshot of the Common Application. So this essay is meant to demonstrate the student's ability to write clearly and concisely on a selected topic, and also helps the student distinguish themselves in their own voice. And this is something we're going to keep coming back to. So we want students to think about, what do they want the readers of their application to know about them apart from their courses, their grades, their test scores, right? All of the numbers that they're submitting to the colleges. So this is a maximum of 650 words. Students do not have to use that full 650, but it has to be at least 250 words in order to be accepted by the Common Application. From my experience, the majority of students that I have worked with over the years have landed somewhere in around that 600-ish range. Some have used every last word of the 650, but usually they do end up somewhere around 600 so that they can really, again, clearly share who they are in their own voice. So let's talk about those essay prompts. The Common Application every year gives students 7 different prompts that they can choose from when they're addressing this essay. So the first one, if they choose this one, this would be if the student wants to talk about some aspect of their identity or an interest that they have that is so important to who they are. It is a core part of their being. If that's something that they want to focus on in their essay, then this first prompt could be a great way to do that. The second prompt focuses on obstacles. So, a challenge that the student has encountered, they worked through it, they overcame it. So, they're on the other side of it. They're not still in the challenge, right? We've gotten all the way through the challenge, and now we're reflecting back on what we've learned, how we've grown as a person. The third one is a time that a student really got into critical thinking, really maybe pushed back on something that was assumed to be a given, or maybe like a core idea that they'd always grown up with, and they kind of pushed back on that. And so this is really digging into that intellectual curiosity, that critical thinking moment. And again, what was the outcome? How did they grow? Number 4 is or wait, number yes, number 4 is reflect on something that someone has done for you that made you happy or thankful. How did that gratitude then motivate you? So this is something that the student benefited from someone else's benevolence. And they're asking, if the student wants to reflect on that. Maybe the student was gifted something, or someone forgave the student for something that maybe they thought was going to be unforgivable. And that, moving forward taught them a life lesson. So that could be a good area to focus there. Then number 5 is discuss an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth and a new understanding of yourself and others. So this second part of this prompt is really where we need to focus. A lot of times parents get really excited about this one, and they say, "Oh, this is the place where you should write all about this big crowning achievement that we are all so proud of you of. This is the main thing you should write your essay about." Maybe, maybe not, right? So we'll get into maybe where some other places that could go in the application. But the main thing, no matter what they're writing about, maybe they are writing about that accomplishment, but the bulk of the essay should not be about the accomplishment. The accomplishment itself should be kept to maybe a quarter of the full length. Really, what they want to know about is the personal growth and the new understanding of yourself and others that you've experienced since that accomplishment. Okay. The sixth one is describe a topic, idea, or concept you find so engaging that it makes you lose all track of time. So, again, this one's getting more into that intellectual curiosity, not just learning for, getting a good grade, but learning for the passion of it. And then the last one, which is my personal favorite, is share an essay on the topic of your choice. So, if none of these 6 really fit exactly what your student is wanting to write about, then there is option number 7, and they can choose that. Okay. The colleges this is not a trick. This is not a trick question. The colleges will not ding you if you choose number 7. I get students who ask me that a lot. So there is no preference of which prompt that you choose. There is no game. There is no strategy here. The student should just think about what aspect of who they are do they want to share. Okay. Now there is this additional information section here. And so when I was talking about the accomplishment, right? So sometimes students might have something that they really want to share that there's nowhere else in the application to enter that information, but it's a critical part of who that student is. Might not be personal statement worthy, but we want to put that in somewhere. That's where we can add that in to this additional information. Do you wish to provide details of circumstances or qualifications not reflected in your application? This could be a really good place for that. Okay, so as we start talking about these 3 cringes that I want you to avoid, or want your students to avoid, remember, the personal essay has one very specific role in the whole scheme of your student's application, and that is for your student to talk to the admissions officer in their own voice, to share with the admissions office who they are. Okay. There might be other things that your student wants to share that are not the most important thing of who your student is, but an important part of them. Those can go in the additional information section. Your student will also likely have some shorter supplemental essays to write that vary from college to college. So these are other places that, you can potentially end up putting that information. So just keep that in your mind as we're going through. Okay. So the main things we're going to be talking about tonight is how to avoid cringes in this personal essay. Okay. So take that back off. All right, awesome. So, and as we're going through, I saw some people were able to put in the chat what year their students are. We've got some rising seniors. Yes, right on time. This is perfect for you. You can also put questions in there as well. I'll have time for questions at the end. Okay, so cringe number one that we have got to talk about: the essay is not a group project. And I have at least one student who I say this to every year. Your essay is not a group project. And I get it. It's really easy to fall into this. Students are anxious. They want to know that they're doing the right thing. And so they often are getting used to getting feedback. So when they are doing something as important as their Common App essay, they're feeling like they want a lot of feedback. But what happens is they start getting feedback from so many people: teachers, their parents, their friends, their counselors, TikTok, right? Random voices on the internet, Reddit, right? And so it's great for students to seek advice, but too much input can really end up drowning out the student's authentic voice. And so now what we end up with is something that started out like the student, and in the end, we get something like this. Right. So the student really wanted a pizza, and now we have everybody's voices being added in, and here we are. And this is now what the student is submitting. Obviously, never the goal. So the goal is to keep the focus on the student. Okay. The other thing you have to know is that this essay is not meant to sound polished by a team of adults. This essay needs to sound like a 17-year-old wrote it. Okay. When the essays are being reviewed, they're being reviewed by people who are reviewing thousands of applications, often in a cycle, right? So when 17-year-old essay, 17-year-old essay, 17-year-old essay comes through, and then all of a sudden, essay that sounds like a 50-year-old wrote it, that is a big red flag, and it stands out terribly. Okay. And that will throw red flags all over the application. Or maybe there's so much other voice being put into this essay that it's fine, but it doesn't really say anything about the student. It doesn't sound like them. And that's a huge missed opportunity. Even if it's the most beautifully polished essay in the world, that wasn't the purpose of the essay. We got away from the purpose. The purpose was for it to sound like the student and share who they are. Okay. So, what we really want to do is encourage students to trust themselves. So, it's okay for them to have one, maybe two trusted readers, right? So, if you are a family that's working with us at Advantage College Planning, we've got you, right? We've got you. We are working with your student on this. We are going to support them through this process and ensure that their voice and their story is going to shine through in their application in a really powerful way. Right. Maybe you're not working with us yet, or maybe you're trying to decide if you want to work with us, right? If you're doing this on your own, just think about who would be one, maybe two at the most, different perspectives that you want to work with your student. And it has to be people who will encourage the student to stay true to their story. Okay. It's not a committee project. Okay. So it's okay to get feedback, but really keep that circle small and let your student know to, again, trust themselves. Someone may give them feedback and they may say, you know what, I'm not going to accept that feedback because that's not what I'm going for in this essay. And that's fine. Right. So you have to trust them, but encourage them to trust themselves. It is not a group project. All right. Second one is the essay is not an academic paper. So we need to talk about style here. Every year, I have students who tell me, what you're asking me to do is really hard. This is not how I've written essays before. You're asking me to write in a way that's different. And they're correct. I'm asking them to write in a very different way than they're used to. So the Common Application personal essay is not the same as the formal academic essays that they're writing for school, right? So they have been trained to have a thesis statement, 3 supporting statements, a conclusion that wraps it all up. That's great for probably what they're being asked to do for some of their English classes, what they're being asked to do for history. That's a perfectly good style for an academic paper. But the common application essay is not that. Remember, this is supposed to be a piece of writing to help the college admissions officers know who your student is. So it's meant to be more told as a story or a reflection. Okay. This is a chance for a student to share a moment, a lesson learned, some kind of part of them that isn't going to be shown on their transcript. So one of the best ways we can do that is number one, freeing students of the bonds of the, standard 5 paragraph essay, feeling like they have to follow that format. But the other one is encouraging them to write the essay in the way that they speak. It is okay for them to be using a conversational tone. This is not the time to bust out the thesaurus. This is not the time to try to impress someone with their robust vocabulary and throw in these SAT words with a lot of formal language, right? So that it should sound like something that your student would it should sound like a conversation your student would be having with maybe one of their teachers, right? One of their younger teachers who they get along with really well. That's the vibe we're going for, because in reality, the majority of college admissions counselors are in their 20s. They don't look like Professor Minerva McGonagall from Harry Potter. That's a slide we often show in our essay writing workshops because that's what we think of. That's what, movies show us college admissions officers look like. They're not. They're in their early to mid 20s, right? So it's okay to be using a more conversational tone. So, for example, right? Like I give students examples. So, for example, instead of saying, a 17-year-old saying something like, I've always been a dedicated individual who seeks academic excellence. If if you're laughing out loud at the thought of your student saying that, like in common everyday language, they shouldn't be putting that in their essay. What I see more often is something like, I'm the person who makes 5 playlists before starting a big project. One for brainstorming, one for focus, one for celebration. It's how I keep my energy up, right? And that's also so much more interesting for me to read. Now I'm learning a little bit more about that student, right? So it should be more conversational. They can lose the formal tone and really let their personality show. Okay. All right. Last big cringe is the college essay is not a diary entry. So another thing that we see a lot in essays, so when we sit down with students to start working on essays, usually students start out on one end or the other. They either start out being so formal and locked up and not open that no personality is coming through and we need to chip through that. Or they understand that the essay should have some vulnerability and some, humanity in it, and they just dump it all out there, right? And it's a little too much, and we've got to walk it back. So, what we want to keep in mind is that while we want this to be personal, while we want this to be conversational, this is not a diary entry. Many students feel like their college essay needs to be about their hardest, most painful experience in order to stand out. I've often actually had students say, well, nothing really bad has happened to me in my life, so I don't know what I'm going to write my college essay about. And I think that there is this misconception that the college essay, in order to be good or effective, needs to exemplify some type of hardship, and it does not. And in fact, imagine that you're an admissions officer reading thousands of essays a year, and essay after essay are these deeply emotional, sometimes traumatic experiences that you just are coming to work every day, and this is what you're reading, right? It can be very overwhelming. It can be kind of draining, right? So while I really genuinely appreciate so much that this generation of students is so much more open with talking about their struggles and their experiences, and all of that, I think that's so healthy and I think that's really wonderful. And I don't want to discourage that at all. However, when it comes to the personal essay, there is a little bit of a balance. So, one way to think about this is if your student has had a really significant personal trauma or challenge that they've worked through to overcome, the first thing we want to think about is that what the student wants to talk about for the personal essay. Is that the most important thing that the student would tell the college about themselves? And if not, but they still feel like it's somewhat important for context to know that this thing happened, the additional information section that I shared earlier can be a really great place to put that. The other option is sometimes students say, no, I've had this really traumatic thing happen, and I don't want to share that with a random group of strangers on a college campus. Also, totally fine. The third option is if the student does feel that this really challenging experience is what they want to write their essay about, then what we want to make sure we're doing is focusing on not the challenging experience itself for the bulk of the essay, but more on where the student is now and reflecting back and how they've grown. Right. So often that means if we're going to write about something like that, we need to make sure that the student is in a place to be reflective and is truly on the other side of that challenge or trauma and is not still in the middle of it processing it. Because if they're still in the middle of it processing it, then we're not yet in a place where the student can look back and say, here's how I've grown, here's what I've learned, here's the person I am now. And that's really what the admissions office is going to be looking for, right? So if you're writing about something like that, again, we want to keep it kind of like that accomplishment essay. We want to really keep that up at the top of maybe the first quarter to third of your word count. So then you've got the 2/3 to 3/4 left to really talk about who you are now, right? And what that means for you. So those are the three main cringes to avoid. So here's the bottom line is that the personal essay is the only chance for the student on their entire application to talk directly to the admissions office in their current voice of who they are right now, right? Their test scores are from months to a year ago. Their grades on their transcript are from 9th to 11th grade. Those are in the past. The letters of recommendation, that's other people talking about the student. The essay is the one place that is their opportunity to essentially walk into that room and say, hey, here's who I am. Here's why I'm awesome. Here's what I'm going to bring to your community. This is what kind of classmate and roommate I'm going to be, right? So let them do that. Trust them, help them trust themselves, let them shine so that they can tell their story in their own voice and they can't go wrong. So I'm going to open this up now for questions and answers. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Again, if you are one of our clients and you're working with us, we've got this. We are really excited to be working with your students on their essays. If you have a rising senior and you're thinking, I don't know, I thought we were going to do this on our own, but maybe we want some help, you can reach out to us for a free consultation and we'll get to know your student, get to know you, talk about different options for working together, what that could look like, what our support could look like. You can reach out and schedule a free consultation on our website, advcp.com. We also have a lot of great resources on that website. So our Facebook Lives and our YouTube channel are linked there, but we also have a wonderful blog written by my colleague Jamie and a phenomenal podcast, which is hosted by my colleague Ariel. So highly recommend checking those out if you have not already. And then we'll take a break for June and July. So this is a really busy time, but it's also summertime. So you want to find that balance. I want you all to be enjoying your family time. So we are going to take a little bit of a break for the rest of June and July. We'll be back on August 10th. I'll be joined by my colleague, Allison, and we'll be talking about before applying early decision. What are some critical questions you need to be asking yourself and your student before your student makes that binding agreement to apply early decision to a college? So we will see you in August, but in the meantime, feel free to, again, use all of those great resources on our website. And I hope you all have a wonderful summer. We'll see you soon. Bye.